Hello, guys. Imtiaz, welcome. Terence, happy birthday. 21st again. The first question I do have for you, my friend. Who is Terence Lazard?
Adil, great to have you here, joining me on this special day, and Imtiaz as well, two very, very dear friends. The question you've posed to me, I can answer in a number of ways. The first answer I would say is the reason why I'm having this podcast is to find out who is Terence Lazard today. I've been on, as we all have, a journey of self-discovery, and I made it a choice not to think about what other people think about me for about 32 years, 31 years. When I retired from cricket, I was always judged. When we're playing cricket, we in the team and there's somebody else trying to get your place and you're trying to score enough runs to stay in, and then you're always looking over your shoulder. And when you go to a restaurant or wherever, people would recognize you as a certain person. And you would think that they're judging you based on how many runs you scored. I mean, later on in life, you realize you were completely deluded and nobody knew how many runs you scored ever. But so I made the choice to get out of worrying about what other people. I thought the burden of worrying about what other people say or think about me is not worth trying to control that. So I get to this point now where I'm at a certain age, and I'm quite keen to find out 30 odd years later, now and again, how people see you, having discarded that for so long. And I thought it worked really well for me up to that point, because I just didn't have the burden of trying to control other people and their thoughts. So like a lot of my thoughts have been, how do I improve myself? How can I change my life to continually learn, to improve? And I had no frame of reference, because when I was brought up, I lived in South Africa. We were pretty much banned from communication to a large degree. And literally your frame of reference was your family, your school friends, and the news. There was no internet. There was no real. The newspapers were all controlled, and your thoughts. My thoughts were really one on cricket, and that was probably what I went to sleep thinking about every night. And schoolwork was necessary, but ultimately it was cricket. And then when I left school, it was, okay, now what do you do? And cricket was the only thing which I thought about really. It was interesting. But I did have this desire to want more. I didn't know what it was, but I knew I wanted more. So I'll never forget, in those days we had the army. We had to go for 2 years at the time, or you go to university. So the choice was one of the two, and I didn't see myself as wanting to go to the army at this stage. So no reason for that. And I'll never forget my mother saying to me, well, you should do medicine because you've never shown any interest in anything else. So I thought, at the time, that makes sense. I always believed what my mother said was right at that stage. Anyway, and so that's one day I was doing medicine. And on day one, I arrived there, and there were 6 people from my school in the class, and I'd never spoken to one of them at school. They weren't my friends. And I realized, I knew this is not who I am. But somehow I stuck it out for 6 years. I completed my medical studies while playing cricket, and ultimately cricket got me through my medical studies. It was a crazy way of enjoying your student life, because medicine, you went back to university early, you had to work a lot harder, the hours were longer, and I was playing cricket. I didn't travel much because literally. I mean, I've been out of South Africa. I went once when I was 12. I went on a South African schools cricket tour when I was 18 to England, where interestingly enough we got flower bombed because we were still in this, I think it was 83. It was 83. We were still in the sort of apartheid era. And we had no real knowledge of what was going on around us. But, I mean, we had no press. We really were quite naive. Anyway, so that was the second time. And then the third time I went was when I finished my medical studies. So I was about 26. Went to the UK to do some medical locums and played a bit of cricket. And it was a pivotal moment in my life when I was staying at this friend or cousin of mine, and he had a beautiful house and 2 cars, and he was the same age as me. And somebody had told me that he was like, I don't know, not doing that well health-wise, etc., etc., and nothing really positive about him. But meanwhile, I arrived there and I'm staying in this beautiful house in London, and he's given me one of his cars, and I'm thinking, shit, this is a good life. And then one day, I am in Portsmouth at a hospital, and at 2 a.m. they wake me up because I'm now in the geriatric division, which basically caters for people 80 and above. And they asked me to put a catheter in this lady who was, I don't know how old, probably 86, 87. And I thought to myself, this is definitely not where I want to be in my life. So that was a pivotal moment when I said, I can't do this. I just don't have empathy for what I'm doing. I knew I didn't, but that was just the final straw. Anyway, and then I went back to South Africa, and I had 2 issues. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I knew I wanted to make like money, but money was really for freedom. I didn't know what money meant. I just wanted something. I wanted to control my own life, control my own thoughts. And one of the things up to that stage, up to 27, 28, my thoughts were controlled probably by my mother. She was very influential. My father was always supportive, but he wasn't as influential. And I believed what she said was right. And I took a decision when I came back from London to change that. And I had to change my patterns. And it was one of the first times when I consciously made a change of pattern, and I stopped going for Friday night dinners, and I just changed a whole lot of things to take back my ability to make decisions for myself. And that was probably the most powerful thing I did. It took me about 18 months. And from there on, I suddenly felt the freedom to take charge of my life, made serious decisions, was very decisive for a period of time, and started a business, built up quite a nice business, sold a business, got into other businesses, landed up going to Johannesburg, living there. But I was really in control of all my sort of thoughts and my destiny. And I'll never forget my first business was in the treasury management business, where I used to go and I used to literally open the yellow pages and phone a whole lot of companies and say, listen, I can solve your foreign exchange problems and your interest rates and shipping and whatever. And I really believed that. And I would literally get on phone calls and then get a few contracts, and every month you'd make another 10 grand or whatever it was. And I loved it, and it was really impactful. I even had Gary Kirsten came to work with me for 2 days. He came to my apartment in Clifton, and because we were chatting a lot, we used to open the batting together. And I said, "Come work with me." We didn't have cricket was like 6-month thing at the time. And he came and he spent 2 days, and we were basically picking up the yellow pages, making cold calls. And he phoned me on the 3rd day. He said, "Listen, I just can't do this. This just doesn't feel right." And I said, "Gary, you're right." Anyway, so yeah, and then so I built that business up and sold it, and then then the cellular boom started, and I was in Johannesburg, and it was really networking, meeting people. It was fairly random how everything evolved. It was, I wouldn't say it was pre-planned. I was curious, but I was never saying I'm going to be in one industry or another industry. I enjoyed trading the markets, particularly the foreign exchange market. I'd made some money when I was 23. I had a friend of my parents who was quite an entrepreneur. And one day he used to teach me about trading foreign exchange. I thought, okay, that's interesting. And I sort of buy the dollar, sell the euro, buy dollar, buy yen, or sell yen. And one lunchtime, I was at my parents' place, and I'd taken a position, and I made like $20,000. And I thought, shit, this is a nice way of living life compared to my father, who's seeing patients, and I don't know what he was making. But I thought this was quite a sort of, I would say, addictive kind of lifestyle where you can sit, have lunch, and make money. And anyway, so then I started doing a lot of courses because I knew my mind. From my background, my mental state was not a business person's mental state. I was too risk averse. I was too scared of what could go wrong, etc., etc. And I played cricket probably in that manner, well within myself. I didn't express myself enough. And in hindsight, I feel like I could have done so much more. But at the time, I had a few mentors, one being Hilton Ackerman, who was an incredible cricket brain, but was very much had his way of doing things, and I thought that was the right way. There was another guy, Bob Wilmer, who coached me for a while, and Bob was a guy who said, try different things. And I remember trying a couple of different things, like when I played cricket, be technical. I never used to hook or play much off the back foot. I was more a front foot player. And Bob said, we'll have a hook. And then I played a game and I had a hook and I hooked the ball for six. I thought, this is great. A few overs later, I got out. I thought, not so great. But he basically opened me up a bit, and it was a different way of seeing the world as opposed to just basically saying, stick to one method. Bob was try different things. So that kind of opened me up in a cricketing context. But in terms of what happened from cricket and to my business life and my future, I realized I needed self-help in terms of the way I was thinking. And there wasn't obvious mentors around me. So I landed up going to Tony Robbins when I was probably, I think it was about 29 in London. I always spent quite a lot of money going to these courses to try and see how I could think differently. Because you just know that you're just not thinking in the right way, and I think it's a continual thing. It's not a static thing. So it's not like suddenly I had a aha moment that now you're thinking perfectly. But there are moments in time when I felt I've been really on a path of great growth, and things have really worked very well. I mean, I've got up to the age now of 32, or 30 odd. And I think I'll pause for a second.
Very interesting. What I would like to know from a personal point of view, Terence, someone I've known for quite a while now, I want to take you back all the way to the early years, from as young as you could remember, 2, 3, 4, 5, how your parents, what kind of role, obviously your mother had a big say on your decision making, your life, etc. Did your father play a role? Your siblings, your brothers, your sisters, your early days in school? Were you an overachiever? Were you a naughty child, as they say in England? What are your early recollections of life from as young as you can remember till maybe 12, 13, 14?
Yeah, I mean, I was the youngest of 3 brothers, and they loved their sport. At school, I was probably the leader. I was definitely the leader. I mean, when I was 6, I remember everybody used to follow me everywhere. I was really good football player, good cricket player, football was kind of probably my first sport back in when I was really young. Cricket, not that many people played cricket from where I came from. I was a good table tennis player, good chess player, and then so I wouldn't say I was rebellious. I had my own thoughts, but sport, I knew I felt I was the best.
Where did you go to school?
I was at a school called Weitzman. It's like a sister school to Herzler.
Primary school?
Yeah.
And high school?
Herzler.
Oh.
So Adil, just in terms of a cricket context, which was interesting. So when I went from junior school to high school, there were a couple of good cricket people around. One being Lawrence Sieve, who MTS knows well. And he was 6 years older than me. And he was my frame of reference. So I would look at the old magazines and see what he scored at the same age as me. And he at this stage had started playing for Western Province, provincial cricket. And I always saw I was doing probably a little bit better than him at that age. So that gave me confidence that I could probably do things at a much higher level. But it wasn't like a guarantee. But that was my frame of reference. And I think in hindsight, since I left school, there hasn't been another cricketer since I left, which is probably 40 years ago. So it's interesting when you got a frame of reference of somebody who's close to you or within your sort of framework, it's a lot easier to achieve a milestone or certain milestones. And I think Lawrence, there was it was a period when there were like 3 or 4 kids from that school who all did well over about 6-year period, and then it just completely disappeared. So he was a big help without knowing. I mean, we didn't know each other back in the day, but he certainly helped me know where I was going. In terms of what made me tick as a cricketer, it just came natural. I knew I was really good. How good, I didn't know. But I wanted to be the best I could. And then people's influence came as you get older, and I probably became a little bit, as a professional, I was a bit too conservative, as I said before.
Who sort of, in talking on the cricket side of it, apart from the Seth, who else influenced you to go into cricket? Because by the sound of it, you had no family background in cricket. Normally, a lot of cricket stories are your uncle, auntie, mum, dad, someone within the direct family have been into cricket or play club cricket. By the sounds of it, your father never played club cricket. So where did cricket come from?
And my father did play club cricket.
Okay.
In Zimbabwe. I never saw him play. I mean, he had finished by the time I started. But my brothers played sport, and we used to practice in the garden. But cricket, I couldn't tell you how cricket came about. I mean, we used to play, winter sport, soccer and cricket. So it was quite easy, and I just played everything really. Eventually, as you get older, you have to specialize, So we weren't the best rugby school, so I didn't play really rugby much. But we weren't a great cricket school, to be honest. I mean, I was an outlier, and I wasn't picked for the Western Province Junior School because of the school I came from. We weren't like one of the fashionable schools in those days.
You scored a career high of 307 runs, Terence. The phenomenal score. Considering the schools you went to and you didn't play the junior cricket, you seem to excel very quickly at first-class cricket. Where did that come from? Is that your mentality? Is that your desire? Is that your hunger? Because not many people without a background of being a bit of an ex-cricketer from a junior system and going through the junior system, understanding you got to score big runs to have any opportunities. Very early in your career, you got a lot of runs. Where did that come from? Was that just talent? Was it hard work? Was it your commitment? What was it?
Yeah. My probably the most notable achievements was I made a debut for Western Province, the B team actually. And funnily enough, I opened with Lauren Seif, and we played against Free State, where I think, Adil, you've spent some time there. And I just come out of a Nuffield week, which was the provincial week in South Africa, where we'd been on the South African schools tour. I'd scored the most runs there. So I was expected to do, really well at this week. I had a bit of a run of bad form just before. I had a great run up till my exams. Then I stopped playing a bit, and then we started just before the tournament. Didn't have a good tournament, and they'd picked me for this game against Free State. And Free State had a good side. They had Corey van Sail, side bottom, Willem van der, quite a few good bowlers. And the 2 nights before the game, Australia, they were playing, South Africa were playing Australia. Corey van Sail was playing for South Africa. And I was sitting on the grass watching this, thinking, shit, I'm 2 days' time, I'm going to be playing against this guy. And anyway, and we're playing at Bloemfontein at the Ramblers. And just things, I think I got a bit lucky early on. And then, I got 100 on my first game, which was way out of my expectations. I mean, at this stage, I went into the game thinking, I'm not the player I was like 3 months ago, because I had a run of low scores and like almost a bit of imposter syndrome potentially. And then I ended up getting in and seen through the tough time and kicking on and like got this 100. And then I did that. Funny enough, I then broke my leg playing football the next sort of 6 months later, which was again, Lawrence Seif was in the game with me. Saw this. It was like 2 months before the cricket season started. And it was a big football game, and I just snapped my leg. And that put me out for a year. So my comeback then the following, I missed 1 year of cricket, which was quite a big blow. And then the next year I wasn't as fit so I was playing in the B team again. And they hadn't picked me for the A team. And then I only got picked about 2 months into the next season. And my first game was against Free State again. And I got 160, which was against Alan Donald and quite a few like good bowlers. Again, like it was from like kind of from nowhere in a way. In my mind, I'd come back, and I came back in a big way. So those were probably my highlights. The 307 happened about 9 years later, when I moved from Western Province to Boland, and played against Western Province in a place called Worcester, which is like an hour and a half outside Cape Town. And they had, interestingly enough, they had about 3 South African bowlers. Eric Simons, who's the current, still coaching, Alan Dawson, who bowled for the first time against me, and myself and a guy, John Cummins, we put on like 300, and we got, I just on the 300. So I got 200 on the first day, which was a lot of runs for me, because I wasn't typically that, I wasn't as quick scoring as I could have been, but that day I was, and I got 200. I remember such a good feeling being 200 not out. It was the first time ever. That was my highest score ever. And then we batted again the next day and got to lunch. I had 288, and a whole lot of people came up to me and said, the record is 306. South African first class record.
Wow, didn't know that.
And it was 50 years old. A guy called, I think it was Eric Rowan. And so I thought, okay. So basically I was the captain. So I carried on batting until get to this milestone, if you get there, and got to 307 and then declared, and that was it, yeah. And then and funnily enough, so that was 50-year-old record, and 4 weeks later, a guy, Daryl Cullinan, broke my record, got 338. Yeah.
Did you remember him, Chaz? Did you ever watch Terence play cricket?
I have a vague memory. We were not we were in an era where television wasn't a big thing. But I was in the cricket world then, so I was very aware of him. And I don't know why he speaks about the hook. My memory of him was a hook, actually. I got no idea why.
Really?
Yeah. I got no idea why.
Wow. Wow. Coming towards the end of your cricketing career, what stage did you realise that you need to sort of think about the next stage of your career or the next stage of whatever you wanted to do? And was it something that you decided yourself? Were you pushed out, or was it influence from other people?
I think there were a couple of factors. I mean, the one was I knew I needed to. I mean, in those days we were getting paid. I think the most I got paid was about 10,000 rand, which is in dollars just about $700 maybe a month, and that was pretty good. And you get like maybe a car, and I kind of realized that probably wasn't enough, and then one day I was playing at Boland Bank Park for Boland against Border, and I'll never forget there were we used to have big crowds when we played. I mean, particularly before we got back to international cricket, we used to have like 5,000, 20,000 on a big day. And now we had about 100 people, and I could recognize most of them. And I just had read somewhere that when that's happening, you're not in the right place. So that kind of told me I need to do something else. And I remember telling my father, I almost couldn't tell him, but I said, I'm not playing again.
Wow.
And he couldn't quite understand it, but I just knew I had to move on.
Did you have any idea of what's next?
No. I mean, I genuinely, here I am with a medical degree, which sounded, everybody said, oh, it's fantastic, etc. But to me, it actually has never felt or meant anything to me, funnily enough. And to the extent I've never called myself doctor. I've never put doctor in front of my initials. And it just wasn't my calling, even though I finished my medical career. I finished I got my degree, etc., and I worked for a year or two. But it just, when you just know inside you, if you go down this path, you're going down the wrong path. And I'll give one anecdote story. I was in a theatre room where I was an assistant, and you get paid a little bit of money to basically pass the scalpel or whatever you got to pass. And there were 3 doctors. There was an anaesthetist, a surgeon, and they were all talking about business, talking about investing and this and that. And I'm thinking to myself, well, why didn't you do something else if that's what your passion? Oh no, it's too late. If we'd known, etc., etc. And I just said to myself, there's no ways I'm going to sit here 30 years later and do something I'm not happy with.
Okay, my turn.
Fire away.
Okay, next 5 questions are mine. You are satisfied?
I'm happy to where we are at the moment. So we're building up nicely.
I want to break away from the chronology
Okay.
that you are following.
No problem,
I'd
my
like
friend.
to go a bit rapid fire and just take a few
I like it.
deviations.
I
Are you
like
happy
it.
with that? Okay. So my first question, Adil, is I had goosebumps listening to Terence's opening 20 minutes. I'll tell you why. If I ask Terence a question, there seems to be a thread, and I don't know if there's a thread. There's a thread between how he thinks very deeply about his life, about purpose, about existence, about passion, about what you do, what you don't do. Secondly, when he asks those questions, Terence, you go very deep. So it took you 18 months to change your thinking, but also your behavior in that 18 months. So you went deep. When he scores runs, he goes deep. He goes big. There's a friend of ours, a common friend, who is Terence's business partner, once told me, he says, the one thing about Terence which is different from perhaps normal entrepreneurs is that he chooses a business or an entity or whatever he gets behind, but he leans in heavily. So he goes deep. Okay? Whereas you and I may say, I'm there, and I'm there, and I'm there, and I'm there. Is that a theme of who you are?
I think it's you've picked up on something, Imtiaz, which definitely has been, and I'll give you a few contextual things. Like, I mean, the cricket one's interesting. I did go through some. I think it's fairly normal. Some patches where you would score a lot and then you might not. But I think in the business context, I've had probably 4 businesses which have been pretty consequential in my life, and they've spanned between 3 and 4 years. So in total, I've been in business maybe 28 years, say, and it's been a 10-year sort of period out of 28 where I've had incredible momentum and I've gone very deep. And then the other periods, I haven't been as deep and it hasn't been as consequential. And I've felt like sometimes you're treading water. So,
okay, but how much is that a tenet of your mindset that you discovered early on, this is who I am? Because you spent 18 months at the age of 20 or something, 22, about who am I really? So you went deep to fully understand that, what your passions are, what your behaviors are, what you question, what you don't question, etc. How much did that shape the way you live the rest of your life in terms of choosing a path and going really deep?
Yeah, sometimes it's hard to explain why you do things. Like I can't explain to you why.
Is it just your makeup?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think.
Is it natural to you, or is it, how much of it is natural and how much of it is something that you really have like consciously committed to?
I think it's. I was always fairly. You could say it's obsessive. If I was playing cricket, I was thinking about it. I was talking about it. I was literally going to sleep thinking about every innings, etc., etc. And when it came to business, if I was in a business and I was really passionate about it, and I can think of a few, I would think about it literally.
Because it's quite a fascinating realization. If you take the at high school and you open a magazine and you say, this guy, Lawrence Seif, is one of the best out there, okay? He's top ranking. And you make a comparison with yourself and where his performance are. That's quite an insightful thing very early on your age, right? I read somewhere or heard somewhere that Bill Gates realized somewhere in his classroom or high school career or university, he said, one moment he just realized, I'm actually cleverer than most of these people here, or I have more, brain power. And it seems like that was a moment. It's quite a fascinating thing.
I think Terence is right. He's very obsessive. I know it's a strong word to use. When he's or wants to do something, he's very obsessive about it, and he will give his 100% in learning, understanding it, and then doing whatever it takes to be the best. I've seen it in just general chats that we have. And one of the reasons I asked that question, I didn't know where it come from.
Would that be accurate, Terence?
The one question we can all ask ourselves is, do we go in 100%? And I always feel like there's still 5% one could go in more.
So can I ask you a question? How do you think about reward? So many people live a life going deep. I lived a life in a business for 25 years. I went very deep. But what is the reward for that? Some of it is financial. Some of it is like deeply personal. Some of it is changing lives. Some of it is... How do you think about reward
Yeah, I mean, I wrote, so when I was in Marbella about 4 years ago, we got an apartment there, and there was a book, Tony Robbins' book, and 20 was when I first went to him. It's a little book which I used to read every day. Those days there weren't podcasts, etc., and literally I'd scroll through the book, make notes, and there were a few things I thought about, and the one was I wanted to be able to travel the world and make money wherever I was throughout the year and be in the sun, basically. And the second thing was I wanted to have a home in London, was the one place at the time, somewhere in Europe, and probably I can't remember if it was Cape Town. But I wanted like...
What did that represent for you? Because it's not the physical, the home. It's not. Was it representative of? I want to be global. I want to be international. I want to be. What did it represent for you?
You know,
That picture. What did it represent for you?
There's only one word that I could say, and that's freedom. I've always craved freedom, and to the extent now where I could be, you know, sometimes you could be over the top on freedom, because...
And freedom of what? To think, movement.
I think it's
freedom of what?
Movement, it's people, it's feeling, and it could stem back from when I was younger, when I felt like I wasn't making my own decisions. But I could never work for a corporate. I could never be told, you got to be somewhere at 9 o'clock and leave at 5, you know, unless it made sense.
So money was a tool for you to become free.
Yeah, I mean, I think money goes through phases, but I never felt I wanted to make money to show other people how much money you've made. I wanted it more for myself, to be able to go wherever I want without asking anybody. So even today, I mean, it's not like I've never felt the need to. Some people, you know, it's just the way we are built. Some people feel like they want to have 5 fancy cars and whatever, and you know, have the biggest house or whatever. And I appreciate everybody's got their own sort of way of doing things. You know, they're celebrating their success. For me, it's really been about being able to be in wherever, which could be Dubai, it could be Cape Town, it could be New York, it could be Marbella, London, wherever I am. It could be Saudi, it could be wherever we are. And being in that sort of loving where you are, just because it doesn't matter what I've got. It's just, yes, do I want to stay in a nice room that night? Cars never really interest me. I mean, I do like to be driven in a nice car. I'm not a great driver, so it's not really for me.
Definitely not.
But I might have had decent cars, but it's not my thing. You know, I don't understand cars. Houses, I think, go through phases. So you want to show off. When I say show off to yourself, I mean, it's always nice to have a bigger house as you're growing up, and you've got kids. I think the bigger your house, the more expansive your mindset is, etc. And then I think you hit a stage where your kids are no longer in the home, and then you kind of go back to a smaller space. Whether that's constricting me today, because I live literally in small rooms and very happily, but you've got the space to go everywhere, like staying in a hotel, etc., etc. But I think it's to answer that, it's an evolving story. And today I'm here today because I'd like to know where the next level, where I should go from here. You know, like I'm never one of those guys who's, you know, I think most ex-cricketers, we had the history of talking about those days.
Okay.
We are where we are today, and what can we do?
So here's
today?
a question. Let's talk trade-offs. What will you trade for in your life today, and what would you have traded in the past? What for what?
What would I trade today? As an example, what do you mean by that?
So some people would say, I'll trade $10 million for living in South Africa, or I won't trade the current life I have of following the sun. Will you trade anything in your life today?
Well, today, I mean, I'll give you an example. Today, I woke up. I was fascinated by watching a cricket match, which I still love watching the Test matches. Woke up, in a very nice environment. Went for a swim. Swam 30 lengths. Watched a bit of cricket. Had lovely breakfast at Al Nasim. Then went to gym for an hour with John, the trainer, and then went to have a sauna and a steam, and I loved it. And now we're having this conversation, and we're in Dubai, and I can't be happier. There's no other place I want to be. I'm very fortunate in not wanting to be where I'm not today. I don't think I was always like that. The other thing, on reflection, I always felt I needed to get ahead, and maybe we can all relate to that. You don't come from much in terms of your career, financial, and every day you're sitting in a conversation, but your head's somewhere else, and you feel like I need to get ahead. I'm standing still here, and that was probably 25 years of my life, feeling the need to get ahead. Of late, in the last couple of years, I'm not feeling that as much. We'll always debate that between us, but is it the right thing?
What are the 5 things you value the most? If me and Adil were talking about you in your absence, what do you think we should be saying about what does Terence value?
It's a good question. I would say the first thing I value goes back to freedom, and the freedom says to me I can be. About 4 or 5 years ago, I figured out every week or 2 or 3 I can decide where I'm going to be. So
but remember, if you want to cut this into a short thing, you need to just say the 5 things.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you won't be able to cut it. Okay. So give me the 5 things without explaining them.
Okay, so one is freedom, that feeling of freedom. Secondly is appreciating good friends and relationships with people I've had like a long history with. And I think that becomes even more impactful as you sort of having more time on your hands. 3 is the time to yourself to work on your personal health, on your whether it's your swimming, your gym, it's just your personal well-being. I've got into, I think it's potentially an age thing, but I think the whole longevity thing and living well and feeling good has kind of become a bigger thing. In the last, probably since I've been in Dubai a lot more. 4 good personal relationships, very good personal relationships. Aya's here. She's been very good and very calming for me. My kids, I'm very, very proud of them. I've got 2 now living in New York, one's in Switzerland. And as they're getting older, I'm enjoying more time with them. I'm very thankful for them. Just generally, I'm very, very lucky. I always, the first thing I'll say to people when we talk about things, I say I'm very lucky. I've always been very lucky. And some people say you work.
It's a combination of you make your luck.
Yeah. Question I've got, T, been in my mind. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, please.
Is what change in your mindset when you finish cricket to going into business? Because we all know thousands of cricketers, and the reality is a very high percentage, unfortunately, finish cricket and they don't know what to do, and unfortunately they reminisce about cricket 20, 30 years ago. You didn't do that, not done that, and don't want to do that. I want to know what was different that you had compared to thousands that didn't, and what could possibly benefit anyone else listening to this when they're going to finish their career? What flipped? What changed? What was it?
A brain.
The truth is,
Not untrue.
now the way I see it, when I finished, there was no real going back. I mean, there was nothing to hold on to. And there was no medicine really that I was. I loved cricket. I mean, it was as we all cricketers, it was really a big passion, a big part of your life. And then it finishes, and you got to replace it. So, and I suppose it's a little bit of a Jewish sort of background, but it wasn't within my family background. So it was very much people around doing some things. I used to go up mountains funny enough, with Lawrence Seif. So when I finished, we used to climb mountains actually every day, and he was in business, and I started to get into. I was always inquisitive, so I was always going down some path in business, but I had no idea, to be honest, as I sit here, how it was going to work out. The answer to your question for young people finishing cricket, it's twofold today. One is I was in a position where I couldn't fall back on cricket. And when you realize that, you just know you got to move on. And I can adapt. I mean, I've been in different companies. The one thing about me is I can cut and move on. I won't sit back in something for too long. It might be a year, as Imtiaz said, but not beyond that. And then you got to do the work. And the work there was recognizing that my mindset had to change. And I spent a lot of time on that. So that was probably my biggest win, which maybe other people didn't do, is they didn't recognize that actually it came from internal. It's not like you don't have the ability, but you actually got to recognize that you need to change something. And I've done it quite a few times in my life, where...
Which, Adil, I think is quite a powerful thing.
Very.
I find that super inspirational and super powerful. There are very few human beings, self included, right, who have the ability to reflect like that.
And change, yeah.
And make the switch and commit to the switch.
And if you look at, in terms of the cricket world that Terence spent many of his years, there'll be very few percentage of people that actually leave on their terms. They're normally pushed. Injury, out of contract, not good enough. Where Terence was brave enough to realize that this is coming to the end now, I want to move on to the next chapter, which is very rare. The one thing I want to know, T, is how would you, before we talk about the future, which I'm really intrigued about, it's your birthday, how would you reflect, looking back on your journey so far?
And I want to add one more question, which is possibly
Yes.
difficult. Any regrets?
I want to come on
What
to that.
does he
He took my
regret?
question, yes. There's two questions I've got.
Okay.
How would you reflect?
Yeah, so I would say when I was, going through the Tony Robbins sort of days of like the transition from cricket stroke medicine to business, I set a whole lot of goals, and I achieved all of those goals. I achieved all those goals. So from that, it gives me a huge amount of box ticking. But as we know in life, it's kind of meaningless in the end, because you can't you never reflect for long. So literally, we always feel like we got to be moving forward. We don't want to be standing still, because you get kind of knocked over. So I would definitely say to you, and I don't look to give myself credit, because I think we are a moving target. But I think at 30, when I was in that transition phase, and to where I am today, I tick every box and I achieved everything and way beyond. When it came to personal life, I was, I had a very good relationship with married Janine, and that was worked out really well. And then over time, that sort of we moved on. But I'm always very thankful for her support through. She was extremely positive. Didn't go deep. She was the complete opposite of me, and that was quite a good sounding board. So there was quite a lot of credit for her at that time. The kids came later. The kids, it wasn't the plan that I was going to have X amount of kids, etc. But so that's worked out well. But I wouldn't say at 30 I thought what was I going to look like at 60, but I had my plans, and I've ticked all those boxes. But to Imtiaz's point, regrets, I feel like there's always been more in the tank. So like when you might think I've been going 100%, I feel like there's still another 5-10% which I could have taken more risk. I could think bigger. My biggest challenge was always that I need to think bigger, and I think it's always an issue about thinking bigger because we only limit ourselves by our thoughts.
On the other flip side, and before we move on to the future, I want your top 3 proudest moments, whether it's individually, whether it's personally, whether it's family, whether it's business, whether it's anything. Just simple 3 top things that you feel, as of sitting today, you're proud of what you've achieved and what you've done. The 3 top things. In order, 3, 2, 1.
In business, there was one standout moment, which I remember. Yeah, so what happened was it was back in 2007. So we were involved in a business called RMCS, and we had I think Jonathan Bear, who's a very powerful investor. He was involved. MTS will know him. Brad, another friend of mine, Keith Browse, and we had a meeting with MTN. And we created this meeting through, they didn't really, we were a small company and they were this conglomerate and they were not that keen to engage with us. We found a way to get a meeting with them. We met them on a Friday afternoon at our head office in Randburg, in Northcliffe. And the guy walked in, it was Jonathan Bear came to the meeting, and he comes in his Crocs, and there was Sean Hurwitz, you would know, Brad, myself, 1 or 2 others. And one was Ron Goldstein. Anyway, so the guy walks in half an hour late. He looks at us and he says to us, "Where's Cyril Ramaphosa?" So we said, "Well, what do you mean?" Because Cyril he's the current president of South Africa. He was the chairman of MTN. And we said, Jonathan says, "Do you want me to call him?" Because Jonathan had been involved with him a bit back in the day. And basically the guy was accusing us of being sort of hoodwinking it to get a meeting kind of thing. Now, Jonathan was a highly respected guy, but this guy had just come from Nigeria. He was an ex-South African or South African guy. He'd been in Nigeria, just arrived back in South Africa, head of MTN South Africa. Anyway, so the meeting basically was the most crazy meeting I've ever been in. And it settled down after about 45 minutes. And we ended it, and it was like reasonably, cordial meeting. So we go to the parking lot outside, and Jonathan, who's now been in hundreds of thousands of meetings, says, "I've never met somebody quite like that. So like arrogant and stupid, like to have that attitude." So anyway, so I thought to myself, okay, I'm going to make the worst meeting the best meeting. And I remember thinking, and it was purely in my head, that I'm going to turn this meeting around. So I called the guy the next day. It was a Saturday morning. And we chatted. And we chatted for about 2 hours. And a week later, there were 30 people in the head office there. They were giving us their finest lunch. And we were basically like heroes. They were keen to do a deal with us as soon as possible. And I mean, the rest is history. I mean, 3 months later, we kind of made a lot of money. And I think just that was the best analogy of the worst situation, which consciously turned around.
So, Adil, what would you call that about Terence? It's a trait that I've seen in him. He's tenacious. He never gives up. I guess it goes back to the scoring of the 300 and all of those kind of things that we spoke about, right? And leaning in, that he really never gives up.
He never gives in.
He always turns lemon into lemonade. Okay.
He
finds a way. He always finds a way. What is that about you, Terence? What is it? And he comes at people from a different angle. He tries to understand the psychology of the person. It's the one thing I've picked up. You understand the psychology of the human being. And then... And never takes it personally. In other words, most people would have said, what an a-hole, what a horrible human being, got angry. He never gets angry, stays calm, understands where that person is coming from, and then works on the person's, takes the weakness of the person and turns it into a positive.
He strategizes very well. He analyzes very well, very patient, observes, and that's how we come across.
Would you call yourself a patient strategist? That's what Adil is saying. I would agree with that, actually, from my experience.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's completely always flawless, because sometimes there's, in certain situations you kind of say, well, maybe, you learn from, like when somebody says no to you, is it really a no? So it's almost like a challenge. Because I don't think people really say what they feel always. So like, I don't take a no as a no. It might be a no, maybe it might be a yes. So I think that, to your point, it's just like, do I take anything on face value exactly? Like, if you go to a meeting and somebody says no, it's very unlikely that
what
people
do they mean?
say, yeah, what do they mean? So we've all had circumstances recently and all the time where somebody's saying no to you, and it's how you react to it. And that's kind of what I've been working on, is how I react to a situation, because I suppose that's all we can control. And I think, just one point which we haven't touched on, is I worked out a long time ago, the only thing we can control is our emotions. Like, so if something happens to you and you want to think about it and delve on it, it's up to you. You don't have to. So I've been quite good at controlling my emotions to situations. And not...
Reminds me a little bit of what Gary Play used to say. It's not what happens to you, it's how you react to it, right? And I think Terence is, for me, a living example of how he never allows his reaction to become outsized emotionally.
I agree with that. So many conversations we've had, and people have said things to Terence, and as though nothing's happened. Where someone like me, that's not as calm as him, not as experienced, we may have reacted.
Same.
And he's like, okay.
What do you put that down to? Is that a thoughtful discipline, or is it your nature?
No, it was definitely I had to teach myself to do that.
That's a fascinating lesson, actually.
How?
Well, when I was going through my sort of soul searching back in, say, that period when kind of trying to rethink how my brain was wired to kind of become more successful in business, I realized that generally what people say is, if you think things are black and white, and when you get emotional, it's either black or white. And kind of got a feeling that business is not about that. It's very much more grey. It's very much about being more flexible, and try not to be too judgmental on a business situation. And it kind of made me less emotional personally. I mean, I probably was deep inside me, but I never showed it off. And I think it was part of my strategy of not clouding my judgment with emotions. Because you can for a moment, but then you've got to reset it. And that's definitely, if you ask, it was one of my strategies when I had to change what I knew was I just can see if you get emotional about things, and very few people in business do well through emotions.
So true, that me. So true.
Yeah, yeah. I've never seen Terence ruminate.
Never.
It's such a powerful thing.
When you say ruminate?
No, you don't sit and overanalyze and overthink, and like you look forward, you look at the positive in every situation. So you never, to your point,
He's always looking at angles.
I don't think you spend time ruminating. You think hard and deeply, but you don't ruminate.
He said to me that, what does no mean? I understand what that means with Terence. No's like, okay, this no here, but there's not a no from this angle or this angle. He'll create an angle, he'll create a situation.
And it could be that you saying no to something you can't even say, you don't even understand what you're saying no to. You can't see the picture. Let me help you see the picture.
Correct. And he'll come up with a strategy or where that no turns into a yes.
Yeah.
So tell me something else, T, now. Learned a hell of a lot about you in the last hour and a half. I want to talk a bit about the future. So a lot about your childhood, a lot about your cricket, a lot about your business, how you think, how you strategize, your feelings, your emotions, your injuries. We've spoke a lot. I want to take a little bit of time with Mr. Imtiaz's help about the future. What does the future hold for Terence Lazard? What do you want? What do you want to achieve? What do you want to be remembered as?
I think part of today is part of shaping a bit of a future, to be honest.
Can I make life a little bit more difficult for him?
Of course.
If we make the next 15 years, okay, because it's quite a big milestone birthday today.
Okay.
Let's just give him 15 years.
Okay.
What will he be disappointed about if he doesn't achieve in the next 15 years?
I would like to go to my daughters, probably their weddings. That would be one thing which would be interesting. I'd like them to be as successful and happy as they can be. That's one priority. My personal, in terms of my lifestyle today, I'd like it to carry on the way it is. I actually never wake up. Not never, but I don't really feel like I'm missing anything every day. Even though it feels like quite a simple day. I explained to you my day today. Probably tomorrow we'll do something similar. But I love doing that every day. I love the fact that I'm listening to 5 podcasts every day, having a few conversations with interesting people. Could one meet more interesting people? Would I like to have a sort of meet Elon Musk and chat and a few other interesting people in America? For sure. How hungry am I to do that is the question. Like, some people are incredibly hungry to be in the room with Donald Trump. I love Donald. I think he's amazing, but if I had something to offer him, I would be really keen to meet him. So I'd go there with a focus, but I wouldn't really want to meet him just randomly and say, hi, how are you, type of thing. I'd like to go there with a plan, and then I would enjoy it. So the next 15 years, I'm grappling with 2 things. One is, do I want to get into a business again and have another real focus point for the next 3-4 years? And I haven't, the honest answer to that today is I haven't seen a reason. There's no financial reason why or personal reason why yet. But I think it'll come. And it'll come around meeting somebody who I want to spend a lot of time with, I see a lot of potential with. It's not a field specific, but I think it'll come. I've always wanted to and maybe Adil brought it up. I'd love to mentor people if I think I can make a big difference. Like, talk about sportsmen. Yeah, I think sportsmen, they've got a great mindset for business. They don't realize it. They're seeing it in America. You're seeing quite a few of the guys are doing unbelievably well. But I think there are a lot of others who feel like they're in a box, but it's not true. So I'd like to make an impact there. But I like to do it more one-on-one. So I'd like to have maybe 3 or 4 sportsmen who you go deep with. You want to see the potential. You want to see them wanting to learn. So I want to learn. I love change. When I say change, I love feeling like I'm learning something new. But as I sit here today, I used to have a financial target in my head. And today I don't. I don't have a target of wanting a house or a car or anything. And that's actually grappling with me a bit because if you don't have some target financial, you tend not to be as hungry to build a business. So I need to find that sort of, why do I want to make an impact? And
are you concerned you may be getting complacent?
Definitely. I mean, I always am concerned. I mean, to just one point, I always feel like it came to me years ago, you've got to maximize your potential. That was something was the back of my mind. You've got to maximize your potential. It's a hell of a difficult thing to do that because we just don't know what our potential really is. Some people will say you've done really well, but you think, well, you can do so much better. I mean, relative to what? It's all a relative game. So it's about, the overthinking. I mean, myself and Imtiaz, we tend to be quite deep thinkers. Adil also, but I mean, we've had many conversations and overthinking. I love the thinking, but I don't want to. I want to try cut out the overthinking. I want to celebrate where I am because it took all of you guys. We've taken a long time to get to this place, and it might not mean that it depends. It's a relative game, and we honestly got to be. I've learned, don't compare yourself to anybody. Yeah. I'm quite good at that. If somebody else is doing well and doing better, I don't want to say better financially, they have more, whatever, it's fine. It's got no reflection. In fact, it's better. So I'm very much on that mindset of celebrating other people's success and not feeling the craziness of life is we feel it like if somebody else is doing better than us, it's a negative on us. It's that those small little things are like waste of time. So I'm quite good at that. But I'd like to sit here and say I'd like to financially be X and Y, which I did all my life. But I don't feel that I'm there today, and maybe this will get me there, and maybe this is the kind of spark I wanted, and I thanks to Aya for coming up with the idea, and you guys for doing this, because I think we learn so much from being asked these questions and self-reflecting.
What would your dad say about you today? What would you want him to say?
My dad was very proud of me. He loved cricket. I think I was kind of his favorite because I was a good cricketer. He'd be proud of me today.
We heard your daughters at your birthday last year. I mean, any dad would be supremely proud to have heard what they said about you. If you wanted them to say something on their wedding day to you, what are the key things you would want them to say?
My biggest focus for my kids has been to give them the freedom to create their own path, which I I in hindsight wanted. But at the same time, it comes with the burden of them making their own decisions. So I haven't pushed them too much down a path. I'm hoping they'll create the path for themselves. Whether that balance is going to prove to be the best, I'm not sure. But I would hope that they get to a position where they don't have regrets about what they did, and they did it for themselves. I think too many people are living a life for their parents and for somebody else. And I was able to actually take that back for myself, but I don't know if it's too much of a burden to give to somebody else. I'm not sure if it's the right thing.
So you want them to be truly empowered.
Yeah.
Terence, tell me about your community that you grew up in, because many times our community shapes us, okay? And that shaping is something, it seems to me, you chose to reject some of the things, okay? And create your own path. But in some ways, you have to be grateful for the community you grew up in. I would guess the Jewish community in Cape Town, very business-minded, very supportive of each other, very smart, very savvy. How would you reflect on how that community helped you create a platform for yourself?
Yeah, interesting question. My reflection on Cape Town. So the first part of my career or my life was Cape Town school, and then university and playing cricket. My business career started more in Johannesburg, and I had great years in Johannesburg, and I loved the people there, and I think the people in Johannesburg are actually much more sort of open to kind of my way of thinking, where people are a lot friendlier, they're a lot more sociable, they're a lot more business orientated. So my best reflection, was those years in Johannesburg. Funnily enough, not my initial Cape Town years, and the shaping. There was no real business shaping. Unfortunately, my parents were medical people.
Okay, but many of the people around you were business people. Many of the people you went to the synagogue with, many of the cricketers, I guess, or in the cricketing community or the Jewish community, surely it's quite an entrepreneurial community. Surely business, talking business, thinking business was a big part of your upbringing. And how much did that help you? Or how much was that an enabler?
The problem really was that we weren't in that mix much. I mean, if I'm honest with you, it doesn't just happen that you've become part of that sort of business community when your parents are not in that and not even close to that. There was one person they introduced me to who played bridge with them, who had an impact on me. He was an entrepreneur and he taught me a few things. But I was never in the mix. I wasn't able, so it was quite tricky, to be honest.
So I guess, can we then say that your parents were in some ways survivors? That's why they wanted you to take the safe route, be a doctor or be a lawyer or...
Yeah, I mean, they were certainly not entrepreneurs.
So the dinner table conversations were not about entrepreneurship?
Dinner table was consistent about cricket, sport, and maybe a little bit of medicine.
If you look at Terence's cricket career, it reflects for me what I know of Terence today, his past, not where he is today in the future, where he was a lot more talented than what he performed, in my opinion.
Yeah.
He was too defensive,
Yeah.
too negative.
Yes.
Where if you look at him after his cricketing career, where he took risks in business, where he was positive, where everything was about forward, where he is today, if he had that in his cricketing life, I'm sure there would be different results. So it took him, as he said, with his mother and the rest of it, a long time to get out of that mindset, where his mindset now and after cricket is so more different.
So, I mean, not to be crude, but I guess, and that's a very interesting insight from you, Adil, but I guess what you're saying is that because he grew up in a household that was surviving mode.
Yeah.
His cricket reflected that.
In my opinion, yes.
Yes.
In my opinion, he's
And
defensive.
only when he made the psychological shift in his business career and the need for freedom and deeply looking inside of himself and saying, this is not the life I want to live. This is not the way I want to think.
That's how it
But
comes
that
across.
didn't coincide in the early stages
Correct.
of his cricket career, which he could have transformed. But that doesn't matter.
It doesn't, because there's very few could do what he did. He still identified it and did something about it. Now, there's not many. That's why I asked him that question. There's not many that can do that or can achieve it. He did it. Now, if you ask him the direct question, we're sitting here talking to you, I'm sure, well, sorry, I shouldn't say sure. I'm going to ask you the question. If you could change your cricket career, how would you change it? Why would you change it?
To play more shots.
Yeah, but that's because of his mindset. Well, I'll say let him answer. Sorry.
No, but
Instead of doing this, he would do that.
yeah.
Is that fair reflection?
Yeah. I mean, it definitely was. Somebody said that to me when I was 18. They said, just don't lose your flair. And I definitely did lose that. I should have played. I mean, you talk about it. You should play like a millionaire. So if you look at today's cricketers like a Ben Stokes to a degree, or John Crawley, who's comes from a fairly wealthy background, he plays like a millionaire. If he nicks the ball, it's not going to change. But that's how we should live life, because the truth is, that's how we should be living life. Actually, Adrian Caper's brother, once I went for a job interview to trade the futures market, and he was running a company at the time, and he took my meeting because I was cricket. And he says, I watch you play cricket all the time, and this doesn't sound right that you want to do what you're doing now. So you weren't taking any risk. And he was like, so right. At the end of the day, my mindset was completely risk-free. And you can't do that. I mean, every single day you got to take risk of some sort. And today I'm not taking enough risk, to be honest. I mean, if I actually sat here and now we analyze everything, there is some risk I'm taking, but it's within my comfort zone.
You definitely, in the last 5 years, you definitely come across, you're going to shout at me now, you definitely come across more content and happy with yourself now than where you were a couple of years ago, where I find you personally content with your life, very happy with your life, very satisfied. Maybe that's one of the reasons why you're maybe feeling a bit that you need to switch it up again and look at another business and maybe do something again, because you're definitely a lot more content. Well, I personally like it, that you come across a lot more content with your life now.
Yeah, no, I think that's accurate. I am definitely.
What are your pet hates?
My pet hates? My pet hates are, I think the one thing, MTS, is people when they don't, it's an interesting balance. So when people don't appreciate you, who you've put a lot of effort and deep time into, that becomes quite tricky. And I think, a good example is what Adil's been through recently, and I'm sure you've been through the one or two. We all go through it all the time. And on the other hand, if somebody does appreciate me and it's not impactful to me, it doesn't bother me at all. So it's kind of a weird dichotomy that some people, you feel they owe you a gratitude of something, and others you don't really.
Even though they're grateful to you.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah. So
what else?
What was the question?
What are your pet hates? Let me take a guess. From the little that I know of you, you can't stand negative energy people.
Yeah, I think
or people who,
I think talking, what I enjoy is having conversations about what's deeper than what's obvious. Like everybody can talk about what happened yesterday, but who can talk about what's going to happen tomorrow? So I quite like, that's why I had this interest in the cricket's kept me going, because of like landing up gambling on cricket. And it's really just because it just allows you to think of the future. And like you're trying to sort of predict what can happen tomorrow. And I've made a habit. I think you only get paid in life for predicting tomorrow, not for yesterday. So being an after dinner speaker and talking about the weather, whatever, politics, even religion to a large degree, you just go around in circles. So I've learned to cut out stuff which is not going to serve.
What do you fear, Terence?
Nothing really.
What inspires you?
I get inspired by conversations. I went for a walk with a good friend of ours, Sean Hurwitz, in Cape Town a couple of weeks ago. And he was so inspired. We've been chatting for years, and he's so inspired by certain things happening around him. And I love that journey. You know, we've had many chats and evolved. And, you know, those journeys with like close friends and how they actually evolve and grow into their real passion and asking good questions. Like, you know, I think my best strength in business or in life has been to kind of ask deep questions like you do often. The uncomfortable questions of very close friends and business partners, and getting hopefully the best reaction and best out of it. And so when I look at an opportunity, is how can I take somebody who's got talent and is hungry and make them even better? And that's
Who inspires you?
A lot of people inspire me. There's nobody I think is, there's a word.
So you don't have heroes, but you have people who
No,
inspire
I used to have heroes back in the day.
Yeah.
But I realized then you meet the heroes and it's just not the same. You know, even today, I mean, I'm very, you know, I think, I look at Donald Trump's an example of a man who's, when he passes on, he will have given 100,000%. And that's something inspires me about somebody like that. And it's against all odds and against, you know, difficult times. And yet you keep going. So I think different people give me, and on a personal level, people I meet who I'm friends with, they inspire me. I mean, I think all my relationships are slightly different. You know, there's a 10% difference everywhere, and there's a different focus on how you talk about them. But I think today I've got, you know, probably 15, 20 very good friends in different parts of the world who I spend time with, enjoy the conversation. I mean, so I'm not, I feel I'm now when we reflect, I'm very lucky. I'm lucky. I mean, just to spend this afternoon, I'm just, you know, just saying, you know, like we come with the idea, let's spend a couple of hours together. It's just very blessed. I mean, I'm lucky.
What's your favorite place in the world?
It's a good question. People often ask me, where do you live? And I pride myself on genuinely saying, where I am today, I'm happy. Having said that, Dubai is a fantastic city. And it gives us, every day I'm here, I feel lucky. I wouldn't say I felt that 5 years ago, but I think every day it gets better. And it's great to be in a city which works to make every day better for their citizens. Having lived in South Africa, which, you know, I enjoy South Africa, but I just feel, I don't feel the government's necessary.
Who's your best ever cricketer?
Sylvester Clarke.
Wow.
In the world, ever?
You face him?
Yeah.
Wow.
In the world, ever? Who's the greatest of them all?
In my era, I mean, Sylvester Clarke was definitely the most
I'm
fearsome.
talking today. And for all the cricket that you know in all your life.
The greatest that I've seen.
For you, this is the guy who's the greatest cricketer ever.
bit of a random question.
No,
Batter.
there's no
Yeah.
great.
Okay, give me three that you really think are the top three cricketers that you've ever come across, watched, played against, whatever. I know it's quite random, actually. You're right.
The one
It's a
guy,
hard question.
one guy who I admired a lot was Graham Smith, and what I liked about Graham was he was impactful in difficult situations. He won games. If he would stand up and win games, which always makes it's a difference between somebody who does well for averages and a guy actually wins games. So he was impressive. Today, the Indians, there's some I like Shubman Gill. There's lots of cricketers we like. When I played, Alan Donald was impressive. People I played with, we didn't have the. Clark was the most difficult to face.
I've got a question for you.
What do you think of Adil?
Oh, you beat me to it. You beat
Adil.
me to it. He's looking at my phone.
Adil. Adil is very special, man. Heart of gold. He's made a big impact on my life. When you ask Adil to organize anything, there's never a problem. It's quite nice to be part of somebody's life I think we both benefit from each other in a good way. And Adil's transformed into, in the time I've known him, and just he's a learner.
I would dare say that much of his transformation over the last few years, he credits to you. How does that make you feel?
Yeah, it's great that he feels that way.
Does it give you a warm feeling, or do you feel proud, or do you want him to say thank you to our earlier conversation?
It's
What category do we put him in?
I think we put him in a category of a guy who's got great potential. He's great with people, and there's no doubt that he's on the road to significant personal growth and living his best life. So it's nice to. What's great is to be around people who you can impact positively. And
Tell us a little bit
and I'd
about
like to
Aya.
believe I'd do the same with you.
Of course, yes, of course. Tell us a little bit about Aya. I miss our walks.
I'll tell you about Aya. Aya's it's very special every day with Aya. She is extremely calm, and even though sometimes I get a bit aggravated, she's probably learned before I did from back in the Soviet Union that emotions you got to control. And when I get emotional,
Is she your center? Does she center you?
Yeah, she definitely centers me.
That's the impression I get.
I've got
So
a question for you.
Do you agree with that, sir?
I do, but I've got a question from you. What have you personally learned in the last couple of hours that you didn't know about Terence that you do now?
No, my overall feeling is his first 20 minutes was like I had goosebumps. Because, but you don't know until you hear it and feel it. So I've known that. But to hear him articulate that, and to hear him articulate it in a way where he was so deliberate about the shift he wanted to make in his life, I found that like supremely inspiring.
Yeah.
To a point where it made me feel like an idiot.
That shift, that 18 months of all these 2 hours for me is being the ultimate. How you manage to shift the 22 or 23-year-old from your mother, in a sense, directing everything.
And if out of this 2 hours, if we can capture something that will be a lesson for. If I could share that with all my friends and my children and anybody, even myself.
I concur with that one.
I don't know how you capture that, but it is probably the most powerful lesson for other human beings.
I agree.
It's funny we both picked up this.
So,
That's a- yeah,
so
it's a
maybe
massive
I
thing.
can ask you maybe questions to help me. How can I improve?
Well, I can't, nobody can judge whether one can improve or not improve. I think the only thing, do you remember the phone call I made to you after our walk 10 days ago? I called Terence. We had one of those 1.5 hour walks, deep conversations. And I reflected overnight and I woke up in the morning and I said, Terence, I'm worried about that walk. And he should finish the sentence.
Yeah, we didn't, well, I wouldn't say we argue, but we didn't debate. We seemed to be on the same page.
We were both too relaxed. We were too complacent.
So what
We were not robust enough.
So what I said earlier, I am right then. For the first time in the time that I've known Terence, 6, 7, 8 years, it's the first time that I've seen him very content
Yeah.
in life. Where I'm not saying it's bad at all. I personally like it. Where a few years ago he was definitely different. So maybe that's a sign of you two. Where before you'd be at each other about different things.
Yeah.
Where now you both, and even goes for you, Chaz, where mashallah, you've had a beautiful life. Where now you're content and you're not chasing or not pushing
I
certain
don't like
boundaries.
that, by the way.
I think
I don't think
until
I don't
Imtiaz
think we are irritable. Let me
You
rephrase
need
it.
to be
I don't think we are irritable enough.
okay.
We don't want to be as irritable as we were 5 years ago and 10 years ago.
We still want a bit.
But we must still have that little irritableness
Okay.
because it's a healthy irritableness.
Okay.
And I was worried in our last walk that both of us were not irritable
Yeah.
at all, not even for 5 minutes.
I personally, I like that. I think it's quite a good sign. Me personally, T, if I could, as a friend, forget like business and everything else, I would just want Terence to enjoy and do whatever he wants to do for whatever long he's got left to live.
Do you know what
Simple
the
as that.
Sheikh here says in Dubai?
No. Tell me, which part?
He says
Gazelle?
something, I can't remember the exact words, something along the lines of hard times create tough men. Tough men create good times. And good times lead to weak men. And I'm worried that we're in the good times phase. Terence is in the good times phase of his life.
Oh, T,
And that's my...
I like the last moment of this chat. That's about it. I'm not convinced with that one, Terence.
Yeah, no, it's
What would you like to ask us, Terence, before we finish off? We've asked you a lot of deep questions, personal questions, and you've answered them all with open-hearted. What would you like to know, ask us, if anything at all, before we finish off?
yeah. I think as I said in the beginning, I haven't reflected on what other people think about me for 30 odd years intentionally. And you guys are very good friends. So maybe if you had to assess,
Can I respond to that?
Of course.
I think he should stay the course on that. I actually think if you want to disturb your peace, go there.
Yeah, it's a good point actually.
Otherwise, leave it. I agree. Why worry about something you can't control, like you said earlier?
It's your friends who count. Your true
Correct.
friends are the friends who'll tell you, like you and I will tell you.
Oh, yeah,
He's not
for sure.
irritable enough.
Or he's getting too complacent.
He's getting too complacent.
We're trying to tell you something in a
Just
nice
think,
way.
if you want to maintain your peace, I wish I was there. Sometimes I wish I was there. And I don't think you should disturb his peace.
Well, I think you're close to there.
Probably, but I think you shouldn't go there. There is no need. Your life has got, if I may say, his life is a life well lived to date, a life of great achievement, a life of enabling others, which is where real richness comes from.
Very
A life of
inspirational.
inspiring others, and you are a living example of that. A life of, if you look on the scoreboard, great achievements as well, even on the scoreboard.
Yeah.
Okay. Of money and cricket and
In life,
education
generally,
and
yeah.
all of those things. So, what I think, it's been a fight with Terence a lot, that he it's been a consistent fight with me and him, is that I do think that if you looked at the first 20 minutes that you and I were so inspired by, I think he will get a lot of reward by doing more of that through either business initiatives, through mentoring people. And I really think if there's a thing he needs to go to the drawing board about, is that.
Anything from your side, Terence?
No, I think you.
Sorry, before you go, can I ask, what do you think of that? How do you reflect on that?
I agree with what you're saying. I do. Personally, away from you two who've known each other for a very, very long time in business sense, as a human being, as a person, I love how Terence is today. I love how he's got his freedom, how content he is, how at peace he is with himself. I personally love it. But I don't do business with Terence, where you two have done a lot over the years. So from a personal point of view, I love the space he's in at the moment, mentally. I think he's so inspirational in terms of that. He's got so much contentment in him. He still loves to learn. Every day he's loving to learn, listen to podcasts, helping me, supporting me, and many other people. I hear him on the phone 20 times a day, again, about mentoring. He doesn't realise it, but he's actually mentoring so many people. Maurice Barnes, I don't want to mention names, but so many people he actually mentors without him actually realising. And he's given back so much, and I love seeing that. And I'm one of them 20 people that he speaks to about life. And I think that's such a valuable asset that he probably doesn't appreciate he's doing. But people like me, and I'm sure other people that Terence talks to, say, Terence, wow, you really are where you are today is what you're going to be remembered for. Yes, you've achieved so much in business. Yes, you've achieved so much financially, etc. But what you are contributing to life now, for me, is a real value. You're inspiring, helping people like me and many other people to make our family lives better. That's him changing my life, my parents' life, my wife's life, my kids' life. And therefore, what am I doing? I'm passing on to my children, Terence. So it's a generational thing that you pass down, and I don't think you understand it fully and really how appreciative people like me are towards you for what you have done to us. And I think it's an unbelievable asset that you have, and I would love you to continue it, which is very different to what you do.
It's very powerful.
Yeah, I think one question and I think it is, I mean, you've done it, you're very, very involved with your two kids, Yusuf and Mohammed, and they've sort of they're finding their sweet spot for sure. I mean, I would say, and they're going to do really well in their different ways. And that's the question, I sort of ponder with myself, am I giving my kids, sometimes you're giving them too much, they're going to, they're in New York and they're living in a nice place, and they, if they were grounding it out and like really sitting in a small one bedroom with two walls, they would, you kind of get that hunger and whatever. And that's what I had, you ask, how did you change your mindset? Well, because you're looking at a wall and you're realizing, I don't want to look at this wall forever. I need to do something to get out of this, and sometimes so sometimes when you got the choice, I didn't have a choice. Like when you go back and you say, well, you did this, and in my mind, I didn't have a choice. I couldn't carry on doing medicine and I couldn't carry on playing cricket forever. So basically, what's next? And fortunately, I realized that. And some people maybe say, well, they delude themselves a little bit and say, well, maybe you just carry on because the world will say to you, you studied medicine for 6-7 years, don't give it up, don't worry. But they're just talking. They're not actually feeling what you're thinking. I mean, they don't understand why you're so opposed to it. I'm probably one of the few people who got a medical degree who never uses it. Like I don't even call, and that's quite unusual. But for me, I can't think of myself. It doesn't give me.
But Terence, you've always trodden your own path. And that's a very, very powerful and inspiring thing.
But doesn't everybody?
And through treading your own, no. No, most people conform. I would dare to say.
I think that it goes back to that age 23, that switch. Everything listening to today, which obviously I never knew, that switch of freedom, and I use that word a lot now, that freedom from making your own decisions, making your own journey, making your own path. In that room, what do? I've got to do something, and excuse my French, having the balls to get up and do something is phenomenal, because a lot of people don't do that. And like you said about your children, I understand that you've given them so much. We had nothing, so we had no choice but to do something. And all of our kids are very fortunate to life to live, and we all have that same concerns of are we doing too much for the children? Are we doing too much too quickly for them? Where they're going to end up? And I think it is a very valuable lesson to learn, that are we? And I don't know the answer to that.
Coming back to your point about are you spoiling your kids? I mean, the question I always have in my head is that, is it a linear thing? In other words, they have to suffer to appreciate the future. I'm not sure about that. I've often thought about that. Because for me, I look at my children. They were quite comfortable, I would think. But I think the consciousness you create in your girls, I don't see them complacent. I see them damn hungry, right? And
They're trying to impress Dad.
Pardon?
They're trying to impress Dad. And I've picked up on that. And Terence mentioned it before, that he wanted his daughter to have their own path. But the difficulty you've got a father who's very successful, very motivated, well respected, etc., etc. I'm sure the girls, a little bit inside them, will try to please Dad. I know we're going very deep now and very personal. I look at it from the outside.
But if it's a healthy pleasing, it's a good thing. It's a motivational pleasing.
It is. So I personally look at maybe sometimes the girls are trying to please Dad, which I think is good. And it's going to motivate them that Dad did so well. We need to do well. So I wouldn't take it as a negative me. I would look at it that the girls are actually going to New York and in Switzerland, and they're actually doing something. They're actually being positive. They're being brave. They're leaving home. They're leaving the mom. They're leaving the dad. Yeah. And they're actually trying to achieve something rather than just sitting easy in Cape Town or London living off mum and dad. So I think
the other thing, T, you'll know. And I think you have to trust that. That's the one thing I've learned. You will know if your children are spoiled or not. You will know in your heart of hearts. You will know whether they're spoiled or they're soft or they're complacent or you'll know that.
Yeah.
You will know that.
Yeah, the one thing I find tricky, I think, is like the kids will never understand what we went through as kids. They never understand that.
But it's unfair.
Which is, it is probably unfair. But you remember, you talked to me about when you were in Birmingham playing cricket the first time, and I was in England playing cricket, and literally I had like £10 a day to spend type of thing, and Harrods, I bought one chocolate. I told them that story. That's all I could afford, one chocolate. And then one day I had a house in London, and I had Harrods delivered food to me, like I had a order or whatever, and it comes to my house, and the feeling of that, And there are moments when, I'll never forget this. The guy who made an impression on me, this friend of my parents, he took me to Switzerland, and he introduced me to the Swiss bankers, and this is when I was playing cricket, and I was staying in a YMCA. He's in the Four Seasons, and I go to his place, and I think, shit, one day, how would I ever get here? And then 12 years later, or 10 years or whatever, I was in the hotel, and those moments when you actually, you just wish you could get there, and you just feel like it's just too easy, and I just hope that they've got the balance right.
Well, Terence, I'm sure Chaz has got the same feelings as me. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for giving me this opportunity to share real personal details. Have been a valuable lesson again to me. Wishing you a happy birthday with good health, happiness, continued success. And thank you for being Terence Lazard. Imtiaz, your birthday message, my friend.
Well, I can only echo what you say. Thank you very much. My life has been enriched by you, T. generally been enriched. I hope we've done something similar to you. I do miss our conversations, our challenging conversations when we have some distance between us. If there's a definition of a life well lived, I think you come very close to that. It's not over yet. I do think that there's a couple of big lean-ins left in you. I honestly believe that, notwithstanding what my friend says here. I don't like your comfort. It's borders on complacency. But you've inspired many. You inspire many, many, many. You set a high bar. You are clever. He's a clever man.
Very.
And I don't think we should underestimate the power of intellect. So you also can be grateful for many gifts given to you by God. The sporting gifts, intellectual gifts. Because when you say grateful, it's not only about grateful for the life that you've had, but you've used the tools that God gave you. In a way, part of being grateful is use them well, and I think you've used them well. So we wish you a long life and lots of time with
I hope so.
these two fellows.
I'd like to just say, guys, thank you. It's very, very special to have the two of you here today. We've developed like really great friendships, and I really cherish all the walks we have, the conversations, and it's really makes a huge impact on my life. You guys are very. Whenever I text you, it's with a lot of warmth, and it's like, got a smile on my face. Thank you.
Thank you.
To many more.